Hello everyone and happy Thanksgiving to you. I am making a surprise video today because there is a surprise patch for Warhammer Return of Reckoning. And so I wanted to take a moment and actually look at these patch notes because there is a lot to dissect here. So I thought, hey, let's look at it together and get an idea of what exactly is going on for Return of Reckoning, because apparently they were working on some stuff behind the scenes. And when I say they were working on some stuff, they were working on some stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and take this from the top here. All right, so the biggest thing that they've done, arguably the biggest thing I should say, is they added a new dungeon, a brand new dungeon, and it's for tier 1. So this is actually aimed at new players and the new player experience. And based on what they're saying here, they are wanting to teach players key game mechanics through this dungeon, which I think is absolutely awesome because one, it gives new players a little bit of a break from the RVR, especially if they're a little overwhelmed. And we do see that a lot, right? We see, people who are coming into the game, they're playing in RVR, but they feel very overwhelmed and they just want to take a break and do a little bit of PvE or do a dungeon or something. But the first dungeon available to them isn't until around level 16. 15 to be exact, depending on what faction you're on. It's either going to be the sewers or it's going to be the Saculum dungeons. But with this change, or at least this addition, I should say, we're going to be getting a brand new dungeon, which is already available for new players, anyone in tier 1. So even if you make a new character right now and you're a veteran player, you should be able to go throughout this dungeon and experience it for yourself. So with the new dungeon also comes new story and voice acting, which I'm really interested to hear. They put out, if you saw it, they put out a flyer not that long ago asking for players to send in voice clips so they can add these new voices to the game. But when I saw that, I did not expect this to be added within like the next month or so. So that caught me off guard, but that's a very welcome surprise. I'm looking forward to hearing how talented some of these people are, and having my opportunity to play in the dungeon, which will happen on stream. My first time I'm going to play through it. So bear in mind that I will be doing Twitch streams this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not today because it's Thanksgiving, but I will be putting a link in the description where you can find me. It is temporary. I'm doing the Twitch streams just so you guys have access to the Twitch drops, but during that time, I'm going to be trying to check out everything I can with the new patch. So you come visit me there. You can watch me check out the new patch stuff and also get some drops. And so you'll get rewarded too. In addition to the new dungeon, we're also going to have live event Saga. And live event Saga is going to be running from November 29th all the way to December 9th, which, based on what I'm reading here, there should be some interesting things that I feel like will help drive up, especially if you're a newer player and you're still trying to get, decent renown and everything. I think this is going to help you a lot. In addition to rewards that are going to be available through this event, I think one of the most important things that you can see here is the Grudge Maker and Vengeance driven buffs. So Saga is about killing those who wronged you. So think of dwarf grudges, stuff like that. So with this in mind, there's going to be 2 buffs that they're going to be giving out, right? One of those is based on you going on a killing spree. So the first limited time buff is going to be Grudge Maker. So the player who deals a death blow gains a stack of Grudge Maker for themselves and their party. So anyone in your party is going to get this stack. I'm assuming it's not going to be for your whole warband if you're in a warband. Based on this verbiage, I can pretty much tell you it's going to be just for your party, but we'll see. The buff will increase the renown that you gain by 1%. Now, it can stack up 25 times, meaning if you and your party are just getting death blows left and right, kicking ass, taking names, if you're running a really well done 6-man, you're going to get even more rewards because you're going to be getting a 25% increase in renown on top of whatever else you got. So if you have like renown potion, if you have AAO, whatever you have, you're going to basically be giving yourself even more on top of that. So this could be really good for players who obviously are really good. And I feel like a lot of the good players are really going to take advantage of this. Hopefully, though, and this is my concern, this is probably why it's like a limited time thing, is it doesn't encourage a situation where newer players or players who aren't as geared because they're trying to level up or whatever, are pushed into other parties, so they can't really get the kills they need to level up their renown because, you're going to want all your top players in one group, which is already kind of a thing as it is. But hopefully it doesn't kind of encourage that, because to me, I feel like this should encourage, you wanting to better play at your role and learning your class better and getting better at playing. But at the same time, it may be like a double-edged sword where groups that are already kind of closed off might become more closed off, but who's to say? On the flip side of that, though, there's going to be vengeance driven. So if you're someone who's been getting, whooped, if you've been getting old-fashioned kind of whoop ass opened up on you and you're just getting slaughtered, you will gain stacks in reverse from 2% all the way up to 25%. You will basically get increased stats during that time. So you're going to get stronger. And this might work really well with bolstering, especially if you're, again, a newer player hitting the tier 4s. Because you're essentially going to be able to, even if you're like losing some fights, you may actually be able to make up for it with this stat bonus. And it may even help the team that has like the AAO. But to be honest, I don't know if this is going to change too much in the sense of like if you're early outnumbered, just because usually in this game numbers is what matters. And to me, even that increase in stats isn't necessarily going to make up for numbers, but we'll see. I imagine that there is some potential for this in the sense that if you're like a high damage sorcerer, perhaps if you got this high enough, maybe you could do some serious bombing. But anytime you kill somebody, right, you're going to lose the percentage. So every time you fail somebody, the stacks drop off. So that's another thing is as your stats fall off, right, or someone in your party kills somebody, it's going to drop fast. So it may not even work that good in that sense either. But again, we'll see how it goes. I am very interested because I do feel like there needs to be more for the losing side, especially if they're outnumbered, to help them catch up. I do think some kind of like stat increases are necessary or just something, but I don't know if the way this is set up is going to guarantee that the players that are getting, beat down by, numbers, I don't think it's going to really change how that's going for them. But again, we'll see. You never know. I mean, if a bunch of players have, 25% increase in their stats, they could be pretty tough, right? Especially some tanks and stuff. They might actually be able to hold down some areas better. Another really cool thing that I like is the personal book of grudges. So basically, you're going to be able to take a unique quest line that's going to be specific to your race. So if you're like an orc, you'll have your own. If you're a dwarf, you'll have your own, for example. But it should be available for everyone. And basically, whenever you acquire the item at the end of the quest line, you're going to get a permanent 2% damage increase for 60 days against a particular race. So basically, for example, let's say you're an orc, right? And you really hate stunties. And who can blame you, right? They're really annoying. They're always smacking at your kneecaps and stuff, right? So you can do this quest line and basically mark dwarves as being the main race that you have problems with. And during the next 60 days, as long as you have the item equipped, you're going to do an additional 2% damage to that race, which might not seem like a lot, but it definitely will add up. It will definitely add up. And if you really hate dwarves, you can really put the hurt on them now. So another really cool addition to this event is the Fortress Victor's Tale. During any kind of fortress siege, whether you are offense or defense, as long as you participate, you don't even have to win. You'll get a 10% increase to your renown for 3 hours. However, you can also share this buff with other players, even if they didn't participate. So up to 2 of your allies will be able to share in this buff and allow you to basically, even if they, let's say your friend logs in a bit later and they missed the fortress, right? They could still get some additional rewards just because a fortress siege was fought. So there's a really good chance that a lot of people are going to be able to take advantage of this buff, even if they can't play at the time that a fortress siege happens, because you can't always predict when that'll happen, because it could just basically be based on how fast the faction is locking down zones. There's also going to be some new dies added, and they will be available for preview that you can see. So if you're interested in dies and you're interested in Fashion Hammer, there's some stuff for you to also partake in. So in addition to the Saga event that's happening, there's also some big changes to RVR, which are very interesting to me. I'm very curious to how these play out, but they seem like some very positive changes in the right direction. Right now, I would say my biggest critique of anything when it comes to Return of Reckoning is that I feel like the renown gain, even with RVR, is not super good. Like if you're in a group that's smashing people really well, like particularly a party, because Warband, you don't get as much renown if you're not in the actual party with the main DPSers, right? I feel like the renown gain that you have is still kind of slow. Like it still feels very grindy. And while I know some people probably would want it that way, for the most part, I feel like it would be more beneficial for the renown that we gain to be a bit higher, and that it isn't just being rewarded to the people that already are going to have the highest renown. And what I mean by this is DPS players that are, high in gear are going to do the best in damage and kills, and they're the ones that are going to be generating the highest amount of renown, right? So they're going to be generating that renown very high very quickly. But a lot of them already have, very good gear, or even have sovereign gear. So they're geared out, they have everything they need, yet they're still taking the majority of the renown. While I'm not saying that players who are putting in the work shouldn't be rewarded, what I am saying is that when you're somebody who's just relying on bolstering, or you're just a fresh 40 or whatever, and you really need to get the renown so you can gear up and stuff, it can feel kind of slow, and it can feel very grindy, especially if you're not just getting involved in good fights, right? And you're not getting, in groups with good players, good DPS. If you're running with a pug that's just, mostly other players who are just trying to get what they can get out of it, you don't necessarily get rewarded very well. So this change that they've done to campaign, from what I can see, it's basically going to change how people are going to get rewarded. So the zone now has a percentage value displayed in victory points on the UI element, and this bar is filled by killing players in the zone. It is based on the last hour as well as the historical population. The idea behind this is that players who are fighting in lower pop areas or at lower pop times are still getting rewarded the same as players who are playing in high pop times. That way you don't feel like you're being punished because you can't play unless it's like 9 p.m. on Central Time, and there isn't as many players on because all the Euro chats have gone to sleep. So this gives a lot of those NA players who play later at night opportunities to actually get more rewards. So with the current rewards that you can get for capturing a zone, it's going to be the max. That means that you filled out the victory bar, you have max contribution, all that stuff. You're going to be 80,000 XP, 20,000 renown, 4,000 influence, and 60 crests. And that's another thing. They also changed it so you can start getting crests for winning actual keeps instead of, only from the kills or doing the quests. They also changed how reward calculations are for the keeps. So that's including if you defend the keep or if you take the keep, right? If you win, your max contribution, right, could get you the maximum of 30,000 XP, 10,000 renown, 1,200 influence, and 20 crests. So basically, not only are you now also getting crests, which is going to increase your crest game for actually doing keeps, which some people didn't feel like it was even worth it at this time. Now you're actually going to get some better rewards for actually doing it. And I think that's a really good change because it's going to encourage more people to actually go and defend keeps or fight for keeps instead of just trolling through the zone for kills, because that's the maximum way to get renown or war crests. There's been some combat and career changes, but from what I can see, it's nothing like major, just some small changes here and there. So for us fans of Fashion Hammer, we got another W. We finally have Dwarf and Greenskin shields. So finally the cosmetic shields that are available for the elves, and I also believe the Empire and Chaos. Now dwarves and greenskins also have access to theirs. And so now we can finally acquire shields with heraldry on them, so you can basically represent different factions. So if you are ready to rep your favorite orc factions, or greenskin factions I should say, though who are we kidding, orcs are the best part of greenskins. Sorry gobbos, we love you, but orcs all the way. You can finally start representing some of your favorite factions. Like for me, I'm ready to represent some Crimson Killers. More exciting news for new players and their experience. There's been a tier 3 armor rework, bringing the stats on the armor more in line with, I guess in this case, other gear. So that should increase your experience in a positive way when it comes to actually fighting and bolstering settings. And you have your tier 3 armor. You should feel a lot better now than you did before. In addition to that, they've also introduced a new set of public quests, which will also award a new set of armor, which is based around about tier 3, the Holdfast set. So you can actually, save some of your crests and run these public quests, which will take place in Karazakarik and Karazakarik and Karat 8 Peaks. So the 3 quests, there's going to be 3 public quests, and you should be able to farm them to actually get yourself a Holdfast set. And there's also going to be weapons and accessories of equal level. So this is going to be very good now. You're going to want to add this into your rotation of whenever you're leveling a character, because this is going to, one, like I said, it's going to save you some more crests, but 2, you're going to be able to get some pretty good armor and weapons and even accessories instead of having to buy them off the vendors, which again is going to help you a lot because you need to get the maximum amount of stats that you can in order to maximize bolstering so you get the most out of it. So that's pretty much the patch notes. There's a couple things here and there that were done, but most of those other things were like bug fixes or minor changes that I didn't feel like were as important as these bigger ones that are happening right now. Like I said, in addition to the event that's going on, the tier 1 dungeon is huge. In addition to adding the public quests to the dwarf and greenskin cities, enabling new players to get better gear much easier as they're leveling up and taking advantage of bolstering and saving their crests, as well as increasing crest gain. I feel like crests are going to be in a much better place than they were before as far as how people are getting them, how much they're getting them. I think it still remains to be seen. I'm going to have to play it and see how it goes, but I think it still remains to be seen how renown is going to continue working. I hope that in the future we can get more at least double renown events or something, because that's when I feel like the game is at its best, is when you're getting not like hyper amounts of renown, but just enough to where if you take a play session, right, you can pretty much guarantee a few levels of renown, right? If you play for, let's say, a good 3 hours, right, at least a level or 2. Because as it is right now, sometimes depending on how fights go, you might play all day and you might not even get a renown rank. And I'm in renown 40s, so I can't imagine what it's going to be like once I start getting the 50s and 60s, etc. So again, I know that for some people it's probably not as bad, or some people are very experienced. They probably make the most out of it, especially if they have friends who have higher level characters and can help them by putting them in a party. But I just know from my point of view and what the new players are experiencing right now, that the renown gain just isn't quite there as far as how I feel about it. And I feel like even veteran players, I feel like they'd be more encouraged to probably work on new characters, do other things if they didn't feel like it was like such a long grind. As of right now, this the server, right? And I know they're doing everything they can, but I think it's also important to understand that when it comes to like a private server situation, I do think the most important thing you can do for you and your populace, and people that want to play the game, is remember that the game is no longer live, right? You're not trying to keep up some of the carrot on the stick things that were designed to keep subs going. Of course, you want to keep players, but a lot of things that are designed in MMOs were designed around the idea of keeping players subscribed, right? And making money. But when it comes to private servers, some of those barriers that are up that just slows down progression makes it a little bit more artificial, right? They could be kind of a hindrance more so than anything, because really people that are playing out of passion and they're playing out of love. And if they're a newer player, right, they just want to experience this game. And it's already going to be daunting enough that you're jumping into a game that's, nearly 20 years old, and it has players who've been playing it forever, and you just don't know what you're doing, and you don't feel like you're even getting rewarded because you can't even really win fights. You're getting stuck in pugs, etc. While there should still be, a definitive gap between how well new players and veteran players are, I do think that the renown gain should be increased in the sense that it will make newer players feel like that they're actually progressing, even if they're in situations where they're losing all the time because maybe it's just not their day, or they just still haven't quite got their bearings to understand the game well enough. They don't have their tools. They haven't been able to understand gearing just as well. They haven't found a guild. Those kinds of things, because right now it's still a huge shock whenever you go from tier 1 all the way into the combined tiers of tiers 2 through 4, which is basically just tier 4 at this point. Even though bolstering is very strong, a lot of players don't know how to take advantage of it. And I feel like once again, even if you're losing and getting beat down, if you're getting some decent renown out of it, you'll feel like your time is well worth spent, and you'll slowly get the gear and you'll feel stronger. But that's just my opinion. I know that they basically address crest issues with this patch. I don't know how this is going to address renown gain. Like I said, I still need to play it and see how that goes, but I do hope there's more measures taken in place in the future to help renown gain, because I felt like the renown gain in the game was at its best when they did their anniversary double renown. When I did that, I felt the most rewarded, and I felt like the game was at its best in that situation, because even while doing scenario quests, I was getting more renown than I was XP, and I felt like I was engaging more with players from my tier. And I also felt like that when I did spend time in open RVR, it wasn't so bad when things weren't going my way, or it wasn't so bad if I wasn't able to find a group that'll take me at the time because my guild is not online or what have you. So those are the biggest things that I think affect new players right now, and I feel like maybe even veteran players, if they're burnt out a little bit. I do think that increased renown for me personally, and based on the people I've the newer players that I've talked to and some of their feedback, I feel like that would help them a lot and feeling like they're actually progressing on the server. But I'm not going to continue beating the dead horse on this one. I mean, I've already talked about it, and don't get me wrong, outside of my criticism, I love Return of Reckoning, and I've, as you know, a lot of fun with it, and I'm going to continue playing and supporting the developers on this. But as we were talking about this patch, and because it kind of came up already, I feel like I wanted to drop my 2 cents after playing for these last few months, how I feel the game could improve, especially for the experience of newer players. I think that's the most important thing, because right now you might have your your staple population, but you're going to want to increase it in order to continue the server, keep it nice and healthy, and keeping the veteran players engaged, because eventually even if they're fighting the same people over and over, there's a chance they're going to get bored of that, because they're not fighting anyone new, not having new experiences right there. But yeah, that's all I have for you today, guys. I appreciate you spending some time with me. More regular videos will be coming out. Again, I'm sorry. I've been really absorbed in Classic WoW, to be honest with you. I actually have some videos planned I'll do on that, but those will come when they come. But as of right now, guys, I will see you on the streams. I will see you in the next videos. You guys have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy time with your family. And I thank you so much for your time. And I'm very grateful for everyone that comes to my channel and watches it. If you did enjoy any of my content, please be sure to like and give me your subscription so I can make more content for you guys that you enjoy. All right, well, that's it for me. Take care.